All right, here is the last problem from exam 6A that's out in Blackboard. This is problem 4, preparing a multiple step income statement. So this for sure will be on the exam. You're going to have to prepare a statement of retained earnings and an income statement for exam 6. Of course, for the final, you're going to be preparing all of them, maybe more than once. So make sure you know those financial statements. That's the whole point, and knowing what accounts go on them. So for this example, you're going to prepare a multiple step income statement for Good Luck Company, and the accounts are listed here. And looking at this list, this would be really simple. I don't know if I would give you something this simple for an exam. This has only income statement accounts and nothing extra. You know, usually on our exams, if I ask you to prepare a balance sheet, I might throw in a couple of expenses and expect you to know expenses don't go on the balance sheet. For an income statement, maybe I'd put an asset on here and expect you to know assets don't go on the income statement, right? So you can't count on just arranging accounts and nothing else. But in this case, great. We got just what we need and nothing extra. So as you know, net income is equal to revenues minus expenses. And the point of a multiple step income statement is to break out for a merchandising company their sales and their cost of merchandise sold, so we can see that gross profit, so we can understand what parts of their profit, their net income, is coming from the most important part of their business, which is selling stuff. Then we break out all the other expenses separately, and if there's any non-sales revenue or non-operating expenses, we break those out separately at the bottom, because those are kind of special and different and not a normal part of operations, so we want to break that out. We don't want it just mixed up in with all the other expenses or all the other revenues, because that's not very informative. That's the point of financial statements, is to give people information. All right, so let's prepare our income statement for Good Luck Company. So I went ahead and I prepared, my format. So remember, this is a point. Every once in a while somebody still forgets to give it a title. So when you're an accountant, you're working for a lot of different clients. So your client name goes on top. In this case, we're preparing this for Good Luck Company. What kind of thing we're preparing? In this case, it's the income statement and the date for the year ended December 31st, 2014. All right, so when we're preparing a multiple step income statement for an organization that sells stuff, we have to, first of all, get our revenues together that relate to selling stuff, right? And an important part of understanding revenues is understanding the net, right? So we're going to have our sales and anything related to sales, and we'll net that out to come up with our net sales. Okay, so let's look at this. Administrative expenses, okay, well that's not any kind of revenue. Cost of merchandise sold, that's not any kind of revenue. Interest expense, not a revenue. Rent revenue is a revenue, but it's not sales, all right? And it's not sales, so let's hold off on that. Sales, yes. Returns and allowances, yes. Discounts, yes. Selling expenses, expense, right? Not anything related to revenue from sales. So we've got our three important items that are related to sales revenue that go at the very top, right? So we've got sales returns and allowances, and sales discounts. So this is the information that's going to give us net sales. So let's do that. Okay, so the top line is we're going to explain the revenue from sales, which of course starts out with sales, which according to this is 548,000. So I'm going to put that in my middle column here. All right. Remember, I've got 3 columns here because we're going to add and subtract some different things. So I got sales. That's my gross sales, not my net. Now, to get my net sales, I need to subtract some things from sales. And the 2 things I subtract are sales returns and allowances and sales discounts. So let's go less sales returns and allowance, and also less sales discounts. All right. So sales returns and allowances are 9,000. Let me put them over here because I'm going to add them up. And sales discounts 4,560. Right, and those total 13,560. Right. Right, and so this is less. So I'm going to subtract those. So here's my sales minus my returns, allowance, and discount, and that is what gives me my net sales, right? So 548 minus 13,560 is equal to 534,440, right? 544,440. So that's net sales right there. So now we've done our revenue from sales portion of the multiple step income statement. The next thing we need to do is figure out our gross profit, and to do that we just subtract cost of merchandise sold from net profit, right? So the next line is cost of merch sold, and there we go, 181,440. 181,440, and that is my gross profit. Net sales minus cost of merchandise sold equals gross profit, and that would be $353,000. All right, so that's my gross profit. We break this out on a multiple step income statement because it's important. If I'm a store and I'm selling stuff, the most important part of what I do is, the sales and how much the stuff I sell costs me. So there's my gross. We're not quite done. We want to get down to the bottom, to net income. So there's certainly some other expenses that aren't cost of merchandise sold, and there may be some other revenues too. So we need to think about that next. All right. So we've already done sales, we've done cost of merchandise sold. So now we're left with a revenue, which is our rent revenue. So that's going to go at the bottom after operations, right? Because what we're working on now, right, are the operations of running our good luck company, what we really do, which is selling. We may rent out some stuff, we may have some expenses related to that or something, but it's not operations. Operations would be things like selling, general, and administrative expenses. So in this case, we've got administrative and selling. So we're going to put those down as operating expenses and deduct those out, right? So we'll write down operating expenses, right? First one we have here is admin expense. And the next one is selling expense, right? Admin is $28,750. And selling is $65,000. Right? So that'll give us total operating expenses, which is $93,750. Right? These total $93,750. So now we take our net sales minus our total operating expenses, and that is our income from operations. Right? 353 minus 93,750 is 259,250. All right. So that's our operations. That's running the store. That's getting inventory and selling it. Right? So we call that our operations. That's our main business, our operations. Now, there could be some other things going on. For example, in this case, we have interest expense and rent revenue. So interest expense is not an operating expense because if we didn't borrow, we wouldn't have that, right? So that's what we call a financing expense. So interest expense goes separate, and rent revenue, well, our business, we're a merchandising company, we sell stuff. We're not really in the business of renting maybe some of our warehouse space or whatever that is. So that goes in other. So the bottom part of this income statement, that's a multiple step, once we've accounted for operations, then we do everything else. So in this case, we've got other income and expenses. So we've got rent revenue, and we've got interest expense. And so then we'll have net, other, income, and expense. So we'll take our rent revenue, which is $1,500, and we take our interest expense, which is $3,600. I'm just going to put that so I know it's like subtracted from that. And $1,500 minus $3,600 means we're going to deduct net other income and expenses of $2,100. Right, so that's minus $259, $250 minus $2,100 gives us our net income. That's all our revenues and all our expenses. That it yields what we call net income. $257,150. Bottom line. All right, so there we've got it. A multiple step income statement. The key to doing a multiple step income statement is get your net sales first. So you start with your sales revenue and subtract out sales returns and allowances and sales discounts. You get that. Then you subtract out your cost of merchandise sold to get your gross profit. Right? We do that because it gives us more information. We want to know what's actually coming from the actual running of the store. Then any other operating expenses. Take them out and to get income from operations. Then anything else. If you rent out some property or you sold your delivery truck or anything that's not from operations, you add and subtract those revenues and those expenses and you come up with your net income at the bottom line. So make sure you can do all the financial statements. All right, we have a final coming up. We'll definitely need to be able to do all the financial statements, but for exam 6, you'll definitely have to be able to do an income statement. So good luck with doing that.